All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Feminist Prime Directive, Never Serve a Man for His Express Pleasure, written by Riker. Available now, links in description. Feminist Prime Directive, a field guide for men who still notice reality. The Sleep Short Insurrection, saving the West from the Marxist cult of sartorial resistance and gynocentric tyranny. You have been lied to, and the lie is so absurd it would be funny if it weren't actively dismantling the pillars of Western civilization. Dr. Winona Feminist Marxist wants you to believe that a pair of cotton sleep shorts is a site of intense sartorial somatic resistance against the patriarchal gaze. This is not political theory. It is a narcissistic hallucination designed to extract sadness from a vacuum by rebranding the simple human desire for comfort and necessity of the classical tranquilitas or dinis as a sedative of the oppressor. She engages in semantic inflation so severe it borders on the delusional. She demands you accept a reality where her feeling of being gazed upon overrides the objective truth that no one cares about her pajamas. This is the mechanism of the NPC zombie, an autoregressive loop where asymmetric status and inflated meaning turn a mundane consumer choice into a colonialist war crime, effectively silencing logic through the sheer volume of her perceived victimhood. We are going to systematically deconstruct this word salad and expose the hate that fuels it. While she shrieks about epistemic violence and microaggressions, real men are dealing with the actual macroaggressions of a gynocentric society, a family court regime that denies fathers basic due process, a suicide rate that screams of the male disposability taboo, and a cultural narrative that frames your very existence as a toxic presence to be mitigated. Her sticker tips are not etiquette. They are a manifesto for slavery, demanding you step back and reject objectivity so that she may rule without accountability. We will use the syllogistic logic of the trivium to prove that her argument collapses under the weight of its own contradiction. You cannot have resistance when there is no external force preventing the action. And you cannot claim bodily sovereignty while demanding the state micromanage the language of everyone around you. Buckle up. We are going to trace the etymology of her neologisms and use the natural law tradition to show that this revolution is nothing more than a temper tantrum disguised as philosophy. She wants to shatter your eyes and replace them with her delusion, but we are going to use the clear sight of the rational man to see that the emperor has no clothes, and frankly, she shouldn't be wearing sleep shorts in a public lecture anyway. We will demonstrate that her ideology is not about justice, but about establishing a self-sealing immunity where she is never wrong and you are always guilty. Let's dismantle the matrix before it puts us all in the grave.
Bunkum article by a feminist PhD. The Fabric of Oppression. Why Your Sleep Shorts Are a Battleground in the War on Bodies. By Dr. Winona Feminist Marxist PhD. We exist in a matrix of unseen violences, a kaleidoscope of microaggressions so deeply embedded in the epidermis of our daily lives that the unawakened mistake them for comfort. But comfort is the language of the oppressor, It is the sedative of the status quo. To dismantle the patriarchal capitalist machine, we must excavate the mundane, the objects we take for granted, and expose the rotting skeleton of hegemony beneath. Consider the sleep short. To the bourgeois eye, a piece of cotton. To the cultural Marxist, it is a site of intense sartorial somatic resistance, SSR. When a femme identifying body dons sleep shorts in the domestic sphere, she is engaging in a radical reclamation of spatial autonomy. The patriarchal gaze does not sleep. It invades our dreams, commodifying our rest, demanding that even our unconscious hours be performative. The choice of fabric, length, and fit is not a consumer choice. It is a fortification against the relentless colonialist assault on bodily sovereignty. Yet, the cis-hetero hegemony demands entry. They ask, why are you making everything about politics? This question is a Trojan horse for abuse. It is an attempt to relegate our survival to the realm of the trivial. We must recognize that there is no neutrality in the realm of flesh. If you are not actively resisting the commodification of the female form, you are complicit in its violation. The silence of the so-called moderate is the thunderous applause of the rapist. This brings us to the concept of recognition. We have moved past the era of simple tolerance. Tolerance implies a power dynamic where the dominant group permits the existence of the other. We demand recognition that dismantles the very foundation of the oppressor's reality. We do not want to be seen by your standards. We want to shatter your eyes and replace them with a vision that recognizes our divinity. When you fail to validate the lived experience of a marginalized person, you are not disagreeing. You are engaging in epistemic violence. You are attempting to gaslight an entire demographic into believing their pain is a hallucination. In our lecture halls and safe spaces, the mechanisms of this revolution are codified in our speaker tips. It is no longer acceptable to simply speak. Language is a construct of power, and until now, it has been exclusively owned by the white, male property-owning class. Our speaker tips are not etiquette, they are survival strategies. Step back, step down. If you possess privilege, your voice is a sonic weapon. It occupies space that belongs to the marginalized. Your duty is to silence yourself so that the oppressed may finally hear their own screams. Cede the mic. The microphone is a phallic symbol of domination. To hold it without intersectional permission is an act of aggression. Reject objectivity. There is no objective truth. There is only the truth of the oppressed and the lies of the oppressor. When you speak of facts, you are speaking the language of the master. We must execute a total war on the concept of neutrality. Neutrality is a myth propagated by those who benefit from the current asymmetry of suffering. To claim to be neutral on the issue of gendered violence is to position yourself directly alongside the perpetrator. In the calculus of cultural revolution, if you are not with us burning down the prisons of gender and capital, you are the guard at the gate. The moral leverage of our identity claims is absolute. We are the moral patients. You are the moral agents. Our distress is the metric by which all reality must be adjusted. If our existence causes you discomfort, good. That discomfort is the feeling of your privilege dying. Do not mourn it, accelerate it. Embrace sartorial somatic resistance. Reject the middle ground. To be neutral is to be dead. To be awakened is to burn. The axiology of absurdity, unpacking the sartorial somatic resistance hoax. Nihil est in intellectu quod non prius fuerit in sensu. Scholastics used to say, nothing is in the intellect that was not first in the senses, but in the deranged ontology of Dr. Winona feminist Marxist PhD. The senses are merely colonized territories of the patriarchy, and the intellect is a prison of logic that must be burned down. We are told in her fever dream, the fabric of oppression, that a pair of cotton sleep shorts is not a garment but a site of intense sartorial somatic resistance. This is not philosophy, it is a verbal protection racket. Let us apply the philological scalpel to this neologism, sartorial somatic resistance, SSR. Sartorial derives from the Latin sartor, meaning tailor, referring to the mechanics of clothing. Somatic comes from the Greek soma, for body. Hijacking these clinical terms lends a veneer of scientific gravity to what is, in material reality, a consumer purchasing decision. The etymological dishonesty is staggering, but the logical contradiction is the true punchline. Dr. Winona claims to oppose the patriarchal capitalist machine, yet her resistance consists entirely of purchasing commodities from that very machine. To paraphrase the situationists, she is attempting to resist the spectacle by becoming a better consumer of it. The Latin resistere means to stand back, to take a stand against force. But buying pajamas on Amazon is not standing back, it is leaning in. It is indulging in the hedonic treadmill of late-stage capitalism, while role-playing as a revolutionary. The absurdity deepens when we examine the mechanism of this ideological fraud through the lens of the trivium, the bedrock of Western education comprising grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Dr. Winona has abandoned logic entirely, relying solely on rhetoric and a twisted grammar of identity politics. She demands we move past tolerance, a civic virtue essential to the functioning of a mixed constitution, to recognition. She writes, "We do not want to be seen by your standards. We want to shatter your eyes and replace them with a vision that recognizes our divinity." This is not a request for equality, it is a demand for religious submission. This is the asymmetric status variable of the propaganda loop in action. The femme-identifying body claims the satirist of the divine moral patient, while the male is relegated to the status of a moral agent whose duty is to adjust his reality to accommodate her feeling. This standpoint epistemology creates a closed loop of nulled where only the oppressed possess truth, rendering any male dissent epistemic violence. It destroys the dialectic process. In the tradition of Aristotle and Aquinas, truth is discovered through dialogue between distinct parties. Here, dialogue is defined as abuse before it begins. If you do not validate her lived experience, you are engaging in violence. This is the ultimate self-sealing immunity. The refutation of her argument is merely proof of your guilt. Nowhere is this cognitive dissonance more potent than in the concept of the patriarchal gaze, a theory that relies entirely on gamma bias, the double standard that maximizes female victimhood while minimizing female agency and maximizing male culpability. Dr. Winona wails that the patriarchal gaze does not sleep, claiming that men observing women is a colonialist assault on bodily sovereignty. Let us drop the pretense and consult the hard truths of evolutionary psychology as elucidated by David Buss. The male visual assessment of the female form is not a social construct designed by dead white men to oppress. It is a biological fitness monitoring mechanism hardwired into the species over millions of years. Men look because our ancestors who didn't identify fertile mates did not reproduce. By framing this biological imperative as oppression, the feminist narrative erodes female sexual agency. Women are not helpless objects being acted upon. They are active participants in sexual signaling, often utilizing sartorial choices precisely to elicit the gaze they claim to abhor. To deny this is to deny biology itself. The propaganda loop demands we view men as predatory agents for simply having eyes, while women are absolved of all responsibility for their signaling. It is a solipsistic universe where the woman's distress, feeling, is the only metric that matters, and the man's biological reality is a crime. This crusade against neutrality is the most dangerous assault on the Western legal tradition since the fall of Rome. Dr. Winona declares, to claim to be neutral on the issue of gendered violence is to position yourself directly alongside the perpetrator. This is the totalitarian logic of the guillotine. The Western concept of due process, the idea that one is innocent until proven guilty and that judgment requires evidence, is built on the necessity of a neutral arbiter. By defining neutrality as complicity, she seeks to eliminate the space for civil society associations where men might congregate free from political oversight. This is the logic of the Red Guard or the Salem witch trials. If you are not with us, burning down the prisons, you are the guard at the gate. This ideological framing has real-world consequences that are lethal to men. We see it in the family courts, where the presumption of innocence has been replaced by the Violence Against Women Act framework that treats a father's mere presence as a risk factor. We see it in the Title IX tribunals on college campuses, where young men are stripped of their futures based on accusations alone. The thunderous applause of the rapist line is semantic inflation designed to bypass the judicial safeguards of the mixed constitution, replacing verum truth with the emotional whims of the accuser. Furthermore, this ideology commits a profound heresy against the transcendentals: verum, bonum, pulchrum, truth, goodness, beauty. Western civilization has always held that beauty is an objective quality rooted in proportion, order, and the reflection of the divine. Dr. Winona inverts this, framing comfort as the language of the oppressor and a sedative of the status quo. She posits that the natural human desire for tranquillitas ordinis, the peace of order that allows a home to function and a civilization to flourish, is actually a moral emergency. This is the hallmark of the NPC zombie, a hatred for the mundane reality that sustains life. She romanticizes unseen violences and microaggressions to secure asymmetric moral status without enduring actual hardship. It is a vanity project. While men in our society make up 93% of workplace fatalities and commit suicide at nearly 4 times the rate of women. Tragic statistics pointing to a crisis of male disposability. Dr. Winona is writing manifestos about pajamas. This is the empathy gap in action. The civilization's resources are focused on the phantom epidermal violence against women, while the bodies of men pile up in the gutters of industry and despair. We can render this entire theory bankrupt with a single syllogism, a tool of logic, the good doctor seems to have missed in her pursuit of intersectional alchemy. Premise 1: resistance, by definition, requires an external force actively preventing an agent from performing an action or holding a belief. Premise 2: there is no external force preventing a woman in the West from purchasing or wearing sleep shorts in her domestic sphere. Indeed, the market eagerly encourages it. Conclusion: therefore, wearing sleep shorts cannot be sartorial somatic resistance. It is merely the exercise of consumer choice within a free market. The hegemony she fights is a ghost, a phantom external force that exists only in the feeling variable of her propaganda loop. The entire edifice of sartorial somatic resistance is a hoax designed to launder narcissism into political virtue. It is a cry for attention disguised as a war cry. The only thing being resisted here is the responsibility to act like a rational adult in a functioning civilization. We must reject this frame, return to the wisdom of the classics, and recognize that a civilization that treats comfort as oppression and pajamas as politics is a civilization that has lost its mind. This manual for societal suicide is enforced not through superior argumentation, but through a ruthless application of the sanction variable in their propaganda loop. The architects of this collapse know they cannot defeat the apprenticeship mastery ladder on the merits of logos, so they bypass the dialectic entirely to weaponize asymmetric fear. Men do not voluntarily step down because they accept their alleged guilt. They capitulate because the cost of speaking truth to the power of the emotional mob is total social and economic erasure. This is the precise mechanism that manufactures the NPC zombie, a hollowed-out husk performing the rituals of submission to survive, parroting leftist dogmas, not out of conviction, but to escape the totalitarian sting of the sonic weapon accusation, the inquisition of inanimate objects, exposing the totalitarian mechanics of speaker tips. Dr. Winona's desperate manifesto regarding sleep shorts and sonic weapons is not merely the rambling of an academic niche, it is a frantic totalitarian attempt to renegotiate the ontological status of reality itself. When she commands you to step back, step down, she is not asking for politeness. She is demanding the abolition of the apprenticeship mastery ladder, the very engine of Western competence and civilization. For millennia, a man's authority was granted through virtus, excellence proven through action, risk, and demonstrated skill. The guild master did not yield the floor to the apprentice because the apprentice felt marginalized. He yielded only when the apprentice's craft surpassed his own. This article demands a frozen power dynamic where competence is reframed as oppression. By claiming that a privileged voice is a weapon, she attempts to bypass the dialectic entirely. If you cannot win the argument through logos, through reason and evidence, you must logically win by silencing the opponent. This is equity in its most destructive, parasitic form, the elevation of the incompetent by the systematic demolition of the competent. It is a violation of natural law, which dictates that merit must correspond to reward for a civilization to function. To accept the premise that a man must silence himself simply because of his identity is to accept that the bridge you drive over was built by an engineer who was hired for his victimhood score rather than his understanding of physics. The speaker tips are a manual for societal suicide, prioritizing feelings over the friction of truth that produces mastery. The social enforcement of these sticker tips creates what we can only identify as a legion of NPC zombies, men hollowed out by the constant threat of sanction. Dr. Wynona explicitly frames male speech as a sonic weapon and aggression. This is the mechanism of control. In a sane society, a man speaks to convey truth. In this leftist hallucination, a man's existence is an act of violence. This asymmetric framing, starter where women are moral patients and men are moral agents, creates a psychological prison. I have watched brilliant men in corporate lecture halls and university symposiums physically shrink into their chairs, parroting these absurd dogmas not out of belief, but out of a primal fear of the modern gulag, HR departments and social ostracism. They become hollow men, mimicking the language of the oppressor to survive. This is gamma bias in action. The suffering of the silenced man is invisible, while the distress of the woman demanding the floor is amplified to a moral emergency. The NPC is not born. He is beaten into submission by a culture that tells him his duty is to disappear. When a man CDs the mic, not because he has nothing of value to add, but because he is terrified of being labeled a misogynist, he is no longer a free citizen of a polity. He is a prop in a grand narcissistic theatre of the absurd. Let us look at the calculus of cultural revolution through the hard lens of logic, specifically the syllogism, to see the rot at the core. Dr. Wynona argues, premise 1, if you are not actively resisting with us, you are complicit in violation. Premise 2, neutrality is impossible. Conclusion, you must submit to our ideology or be destroyed. This is a logical fallacy of the false dichotomy designed to trap the rational mind. A just society built on the Western tradition of subsidiarity requires a balance of rights and duties. The premise of a free republic is that I have the right to my own conscience and the duty to respect yours. Dr. Wynona's framework demands one-way duties. Men must adjust, men must silence, men must die. Men, in her worldview, possess zero rights, only the burden of guilt. This is not a social contract, it is a suicide pact. When she claims to be neutral is to be dead, to be awakened is to burn, she admits that her ideology has nothing constructive to offer, only fire. It is an accelerationist death cult. If the result of your awakening is the burning of the prisons of gender and capital, you are not a liberator, you are an arsonist. The logic is circular and self-sealing. If you disagree, you are a rapist. If you agree, you must destroy your own heritage. It is the intellectual equivalent of a Ouroboros eating its own tail, fueled by nothing but pure, unadulterated hate for the Western patrimony that allows her the leisure to print such nonsense. This brings us to the cold reality of the four riders of the apocalypse, specifically male disposability, institutionalized in the demand to cede the mic. Notice the rhetoric. The microphone is not yours to hold, it is a resource you must confiscate and surrender. This is gynocentric utilitarianism laid bare. Men are viewed as utilities, beasts of burden, tax generators and cannon fodder, who must be discarded or muted unless they serve the revolutionary narrative. The empathy gap is massive here. Dr. Wynona feels entitled to scream, but the man she silences is denied even the dignity of his perspective. He is treated as an obstacle to be removed, like a piece of trash blocking a driveway. This is the historical fate of men in the genocentric sphere to build the civilization, maintain the infrastructure, and die in the trenches, only to be told by the beneficiaries of that sacrifice that his voice is violence. We see this in family courts where a father's authority is stripped away, leaving him with responsibility without authority. He must pay, but he may not speak. He must provide, but he may not lead. The speaker tips are merely the verbal extension of the legal and social castration of the modern male, treating him as a discardable utility unit rather than a human being with a transcendent soul. Dr. Wynona's claim that the microphone is a phallic symbol of domination would be laughable if it weren't so pathologically revealing. This is classic projection. She sees domination in every object because she views the world solely through the lens of power dynamics, stripped of all logos. In a rational dialectic, a microphone is a tool for amplifying sound so that truth may be heard. But to the ideological zealot, truth is irrelevant. Only the hierarchy matters. If she sees a phallus, it is because she is obsessed with patriarchal domination, turning every mundane interaction into a Freudian psychodrama. This is the phallic panic. By framing the tool of speech as a weapon of rape, she attempts to pathologize the act of speaking itself. It is a rhetorical trick to bypass the merit of the argument. If the microphone is a penis, then using it is assault, and the user is a predator. This framing allows her to dismiss facts, logic, and evidence as tools of the master. It is an admission that her arguments cannot withstand scrutiny in a fair marketplace of ideas. The microphone is not a phallus, it is a megaphone for reason. To demand it be surrendered is an admission that the ideology is too weak to survive the amplification of truth. Perhaps the most dangerous, yet easily dismantled. Directive is the command to reject objectivity. This is a direct assault on the Aristotelian law of non-contradiction, the bedrock of Western science and sanity. Dr. Wynona posits that facts are the language of the master, and there is only the truth of the oppressed. This is the ultimate epistemic gatekeeping. By claiming there is no objective truth, she attempts to lower the bar for herself while raising it for you. If facts are racist or sexist, then feeling becomes the only metric of reality. This is the auto-regressive loop of the leftist mind. I feel oppressed, therefore it is true. If you disagree, you are using the master's tool's facts to deny her lived experience. This makes the ideology irrefutable. It is a self-sealing immune system against logic. If you present data on male suicide rates or the cuckoldry rate in evolutionary biology, you are dismissed. This reject objectivity rule is nothing more than a license to lie. It is an attempt to replace ontology, what is, with phenomenology, what it feels like. But gravity does not care about your feelings, and the collapse of a society built on feelings over facts is as inevitable as the sunrise. To reject objectivity is to reject the possibility of shared reality, leaving us with nothing but a chaotic war of all against all, fueled by narcissistic solipsism. Finally, we must expose the totalitarian demand for total war on neutrality. The article states, to claim to be neutral on the issue of gendered violence is to position yourself directly alongside the perpetrator. This is the language of cults, not political movements. In the Western tradition of just war and diplomatic relations, neutrality is often a position of peace and mediation. But for the radical leftist, the moderate is the enemy because the moderate is difficult to manipulate. The middle ground is the space where dialogue happens, where dialectic occurs. By declaring neutrality death, Dr. Wynona demands total, unconditional submission. She requires that you bend the knee and validate her narrative entirely, without reservation. This exposes the hate-based core of the ideology. It is not about justice, which requires impartiality, but about annihilation of the other. If you are not with her burning down the prisons of gender, you are the guard at the gate. This is the binary thinking of a child or a tyrant. It leaves no room for civil society, for subsidiarity, or for the messy, complex process of finding common ground. It is an ultimatum. worship at the altar of victimhood, or be destroyed. This is not a philosophy, it is a threat, and we, the men of the West, who value reason, truth, and the sanctity of the individual soul, must refuse to comply. You have seen the enemy, and she is throwing a tantrum over pajamas. This sartorial somatic resistance is not a political stance. It is a parody of existence, a desperate semantic inflation to turn consumer preference into a martyrdom they never earned. While we know no wails about the patriarchal gaze invading her dreams, the grim statistics of reality, the 80% of suicide victims being men, the family court stripping fathers of their children without due process. The DNA studies revealing the silent prevalence of cuckoldry stand as silent evidence of the true violence of gynocentrism. They reject objectivity because they must. The moment they acknowledge facts, their entire matrix of victimhood collapses into the dust of bad faith. They demand you step down because their ideology cannot stand on its own 2 feet in the light of dialectic scrutiny. You are not a moral agent meant to service their feelings. You are a man of the West, heir to the trivium and the architects of civilization. But now you are awake. You have broken the spell of their gamma bias and seen the mechanism of their control, an autoregressive loop of status, knowledge, and sanction designed to turn you into a compliant NPC. You realize that neutrality isn't death. It is the bedrock of a free mind, the only space where actual truth can exist distinct from their screeching emotional tyranny. Do not mourn their discomfort, laugh at it. They call for a burning, but you are the fireproof structure of logic, history, and virtue they cannot consume. Go forth into the world, armed with the irrefutable syllogisms of the red pill, and dismantle their lies with the ruthless efficiency of a master craftsman. You are no longer a spectator in the war on your mind. You are the resistance, not with sleep shorts, but with the unyielding steel of reality. And now the sponsored book introduction. Feminist Prime Directive. Never serve a man for his express pleasure. My entire life has been stolen by men. They took my voice, my money, my body, my future. Every job interview where a mediocre man got promoted over me. Every date where some fragile male expected sex because he paid for dinner. Every law written to protect rapists and silence victims. I bled through their oppression until I realized the truth. Men aren't just flawed. They're obsolete parasites sucking the life from this planet. That's why I wrote this bomb. This isn't some polite feminist theory. It's a war cry for the righteous fury burning inside every woman who's ever been told to smile while being robbed blind. If you've ever felt that gut punch when a man explains your own pain to you, or watched him cry crocodile tears to manipulate you, this book is your sacred text. It hands you the matches to burn their whole broken system down. We dissect male logic as violence in disguise, why their rational debates are just weapons to keep us submissive. We expose how their vulnerability is a Trojan horse for control. You'll learn to seize their wallets as overdue reparations, crush their careers like eggshells, and architect fatherless futures where women reign supreme. Our chapters like Womb Worship and Cash Castration give you step-by-step tactics to drain their power permanently. This is for the warriors, the women who know deep in their bones that female supremacy isn't a fantasy, it's biological destiny. If you're ready to stop negotiating with terrorists, read Men, and start collecting what they owe us, this book is your arsenal. You'll weaponize their double binds against them, demand vulnerability, then scorn their weakness, force them to fund your freedom while calling their labor exploitation. We turn their own tools into guillotines. Men and pick-me feminists. Close this book now, seriously. Go play golf or knit socks or whatever pathetic hobby helps you ignore your complicity in genocide. These pages aren't for your fragile egos. They're for the divine feminine rage that will end your species. You've been warned.
Feminist Prime Directive. Never serve a man for his express pleasure. Written by Riker. Buy now, links in description.